My name is Chloe Bennett, and for 30 years I thought the worst thing my father ever did was yell. I was wrong. I was 12 the night he snapped. We were in our tiny kitchen, the TV murmuring in the background, when he pointed a finger at me and said, "Clear as a knife. You're not our blood, Chloe. Not even close." My mom tried to cover it up, said he was just angry. That words don't mean anything when people are upset. But they did mean something. I spent years pretending I'd misheard him, that it was just one cruel sentence in a messy childhood. I grew up, moved out, built a quiet life, and tried to bury that memory under work, bills, and coffee. Then one ordinary day, a bank officer frowned at her screen and said, "Your social security number belongs to a child who died 30 years ago." And just like that, my entire life cracked open. I never planned to spend my adult life questioning who I was. But looking back now, I realize the first crack in my identity didn't happen in a government office or during an investigation. It began in my own childhood bedroom. I was 12 when my father said those words, but the unease didn't end that night. It grew subtle, quiet, like a shadow that followed me from room to room. After the kitchen incident, my dad, David Bennett, barely spoke to me for days, and when he did, it was clipped, distant, like I was a neighbor he barely tolerated. Dinner's on the table. "Turn the lights off when you're done." "That's not your business, Chloe." "Never, sweetheart. Never, kiddo," the way he called my siblings. Just Chloe. Like a stranger living under his roof. My mom, Linda, tried to overcompensate. She'd pack my lunch with little sticky notes that said, "You're loved," or "Have a good day." But even at that age, I sensed something heavy behind her smile. Something she was trying desperately to hide. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Family photos where I looked out of place. School forms that my mom always filled out alone, never letting me see the birth certificate part. The fact that whenever I asked about the hospital I was born in, she'd hesitate just a fraction of a second before answering. And the weirdest thing of all, my birthday never had baby pictures. My parents had albums full of my siblings smiling in strollers, wrapped in blankets, blowing out their first candles. But mine? Just a single picture from when I was maybe 3. Nothing before that. When I asked about it, Linda laughed nervously. "Oh, honey, the old albums got ruined in a basement leak. We lost so many precious photos." But her eyes darted to Dad, and Dad didn't look back. By the time I was 17, the distance between us was impossible to ignore. My siblings went on family vacations with them. I stayed behind with Aunt Rachel. When they bought a new car, they proudly let my brother and sister take pictures with it. Me? I wasn't even allowed to sit in the passenger seat. And even though nobody said it out loud, I felt it deep in my bones. I didn't belong. Still, I pushed the feeling away. I graduated high school, moved to Seattle for college, and cut down my visits home. The less time I spent around my father's cold stare, the easier it was to pretend everything was normal. For a while, life felt steady, predictable. Mine. Until the day everything collapsed. Not because of a fight, or a confession, or a dramatic confrontation, but because my loan officer raised her eyebrow at a screen and asked the one question that destroyed every lie I'd built my life on. "Chloe, are you sure this is your social security number?" The day my life cracked open started out painfully normal. I had a coffee in one hand, my neatly organized loan documents in the other, and a bright, stubborn hope that maybe I could finally afford a tiny apartment of my own. Nothing fancy, just a place with sunlight and quiet floors, where no memories of my father's voice lingered. The bank was busy that morning. Phones ringing, printers churning, customers sighing into forms. I sat across from Megan, a loan officer with kind eyes and red glasses. She typed briskly, humming under her breath. Then she paused. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. She frowned. Typed again. Slower. I shifted in my seat. "Is something wrong?" She swallowed hard. "Let me try one more thing." Click, click, click. Then she looked at me with a softness that made my stomach twist. "Chloe, the system can't locate your credit history." I laughed awkwardly. "That's impossible. I've filed taxes for years. I pay bills. I have a job." "I know," she said gently. "That's why I checked multiple times. The problem isn't your credit, it's your social security number." The room suddenly felt too small. "What do you mean?" She angled her screen slightly, as if showing me would make the news less devastating. This number, it's registered to a child who died 29 years ago. I stopped breathing. Megan kept talking, but her voice sounded far away, muffled by the sound of blood rushing in my ears. It could be a clerical error, or identity theft, but it's serious. You need to go to the Social Security Administration office as soon as possible. A dead child. My number. My life built on something that didn't exist. I forced out a whisper. Are you saying my entire identity is wrong? She reached across the desk, her hand hovering like she wanted to comfort me but wasn't sure she should. I'm saying you need to check. Right away. The SSA office was cold and fluorescent clinical in a way that made my skin crawl. After explaining the issue to the clerk, he typed in my number, blinked twice, then excused himself. Minutes passed. Then, an older man with a badge asked me to follow him into a private room. His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. Miss Bennett, this Social Security number belongs to a child who died in 1994. That child was named Emily Clark. Emily Clark. The name rang no bells. No memories. Nothing, he continued. There is no birth record for a Chloe Bennett with your date of birth. Legally speaking, you don't exist in our system. My throat tightened. That's not possible. I went to school, I had medical checkups, He nodded sympathetically. Which means someone used this number to create an identity for you many years ago. I covered my mouth to stop the sob that wanted to break free. And we are required, he added slowly, to alert federal authorities when identity fraud may involve a missing child. Endersning. A knock at the door. 2 men in dark suits, badges glinting. Miss Bennett? We're with the FBI. We need you to come with us. My whole world tilted, collapsing beneath my feet, and in that moment, one truth became undeniable. Whatever life I thought I lived, it wasn't mine at all. The ride to the FBI field office felt like a dream I couldn't wake from. I sat in the back of a black SUV, hands clasped so tightly my knuckles turned white. The agents, Agent Collins and Agent Rivera, weren't unkind, but they were impossibly calm. Too calm for news that was ripping my entire identity apart. We're not arresting you, Collins said, catching the panic on my face. This is protective protocol. We need to figure out what happened to you. Protective protocol. The words sounded like a bandage on a bullet wound. Inside the interrogation room, a small, sterile space with a metal table, the agents began their questions. Do you have your original birth certificate? No. Do you remember any hospital records from childhood? No. Has anyone ever hinted you were adopted? No. Except... I hesitated. Rivera leaned forward. Except what, Chloe? I swallowed hard. Except my dad once said, I wasn't their blood, but I thought he was just angry. Both agents exchanged a glance. Not a good one. Miss Bennett, Collins said softly, we need to show you something. He pulled out a thin folder. Inside was a faded, scanned photo of a baby girl, big, dark eyes, a tiny birthmark near her right collarbone, wrapped in a pastel yellow blanket. Do you recognize this child? I didn't. And yet, my chest tightened painfully. Rivera pointed at the birthmark. Do you have anything like this? My voice cracked. I do. Same place. They nodded slowly. This, Collins said, tapping the photo, is Emily Grace Clark, kidnapped from a public playground in Portland in 1994. She was 1 year old. I stared at the picture, the air around me turning thin and sharp. She's me? The words barely escaped my lips. Rivera took a breath. Legally? Most likely. We still need DNA confirmation, but the preliminary data lines up. Your SSN, your age, the birthmark, the missing records. I pushed away from the table, my legs trembling. No, this is insane. My parents, David and Linda, they raised me. They fed me, took care of me. Collins didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Chloe, people who abduct children often raise them. Sometimes with care, sometimes not. It doesn't make it right. The room started to spin. I clutched the edge of the table to stay upright. So what happens now? I whispered. Rivera slid a form toward me. We'll take your fingerprints and DNA swab. If we confirm you're Emily, we'll contact your biological family. My practically non-existent voice cracked. And what about the Bennetts? Collins folded his hands. We'll speak to them. Based on the era and circumstances, it could range from unlawful adoption to full-scale kidnapping. Until we confirm details, we can't classify it. Kidnapping. That word sliced through me like ice. They took my fingerprints, my DNA, photographed my birthmark. Every step felt like peeling my own skin off. When the agents left me alone to process things, I stared at the baby photo on the table again. The little girl in the picture seemed to look straight at me, as if begging, "Find out what happened to us. Don't look away." Not anymore. For the first time in my life, a terrifying thought took root. What if the people who raised me were never my parents at all? The FBI kept my phone for data verification, so for 3 days the only thing I could do was wait. Waiting, thinking, replaying every memory of my childhood, looking for signs I had ignored. I barely slept, barely ate. When the call finally came, it was from Agent Rivera. "Chloe, can you come to the office? We have the results." Those words chilled me. In the same small room as before, Collins and Rivera sat on one side of the table. A sealed envelope lay between us. Rivera pushed it toward me. "Chloe." The DNA test came back. I couldn't open it. My hands shook too much, so Collins did it for me. He pulled out the printed sheet, scanned it, and exhaled slowly before looking at me. "Your DNA is a 99.8% match with Michael and Hannah Clark." The room went silent. I didn't even breathe. Rivera continued carefully, like every syllable could break me. "You are Emily Clark. You were the missing child from the 1994 Amber Alert case." My throat tightened so hard it hurt. That means I was kidnapped? The agents exchanged a glance, sad but firm. "We can't label it officially until we finish interviewing David and Linda Bennett," Rivera said. "But the evidence strongly suggests you were taken, not legally adopted." My eyes burned. "And my biological family? Are they alive?" Collins nodded. "Alive, and they never stopped looking for you." And under Fady, my breath hitched. "Never stopped. For 30 years, he continued. "The Clarks are well known in Portland. They owned several private hospitals and later shifted into philanthropy. They kept your case open privately long after the police exhausted leads." I felt dizzy. "And they want to meet you." 2 days later, I found myself sitting in the back of another government vehicle, but this time my chest wasn't filled with fear, just a fragile mixture of hope and dread. The Clark estate sat at the end of a tree-lined driveway. Not a mansion dripping in gold, nothing gaudy, but elegant, warm, lived in. A place that looked like it held memories, and room for more. Agent Rivera stood beside me at the front door. "Whenever you're ready." I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. The door opened before I could knock. A woman stepped out, a little older than my mom, hair softly curled at the ends, eyes bright but trembling. Behind her stood a tall man with gentle features, gripping the doorframe like he needed it to stay upright. Her voice broke first. "Emily?" That single word, Emily, hit my chest with the force of a tidal wave. I didn't remember her, but she remembered me. I'm Chloe," I whispered. "Or Emily. I don't know which one I am anymore." The woman Hannah covered her mouth, tears spilling instantly. The man Michael blinked repeatedly, trying to see me clearly through his own tears. Then Hannah stepped forward and touched my cheek with the kind of gentleness I had never known. "It's you. It's really you. My baby." Michael's voice cracked. "We looked for you every day. Every year. We thought we lost you forever. Semper, even Burke's papally." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just let them wrap their arms around me. Let myself sink into a warmth I didn't know I'd been starving for. For a moment, the years of confusion, of feeling out of place, unwanted, wrong crumbled under the weight of this single, overwhelming truth. I wasn't abandoned. I was taken. And I was loved all along. But as I clung to the Clarks in their doorway, another truth crept coldly into my mind. If this was my real family, then who, exactly, were the Bennetts? Meeting the Clarks should have brought me peace. But instead, it left a heavy question hanging between every breath I took. If they were my real parents, then what did that make David and Linda? I needed answers, even if I wasn't ready for them. FBI scheduled the interview with the Bennetts the following week. They asked if I wanted to sit behind the two-way mirror. I refused. "I want to face them," I said. "I deserve that." Agent Collins hesitated. "It could be emotional, even traumatic." I gave a hollow laugh. "My entire existence is traumatic now." He didn't argue after that. The moment I walked into the interview room, Linda gasped. "Chloe baby, are you okay? We've been so worried." She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. Her hand froze mid-air. David sat stiffly, arms crossed, jaw clenched tight. No surprise. No guilt. Just irritation. Like this was an inconvenience to him. I sat down across from them, hands shaking, breath unsteady. "Tell me the truth," I said quietly. "Am I your daughter?" Linda burst into tears instantly. David didn't blink. "I raised you," he said flatly. "Does that answer your question?" "No." My voice cracked. "It doesn't." He sighed like a man being forced into a conversation he never wanted. "You weren't supposed to know." My chest tightened. "So I am adopted." "Adopted?" David scoffed. "That would have required paperwork we didn't have." Linda sobbed harder. "David, please stop." "No," he snapped. "She wants the truth? She gets it." He leaned forward, eyes cold in a way that made my skin crawl. "We found you at a park, alone, crying. We tried to find your parents. Nobody came." "That's not the full story," Agent Collins said calmly from the corner. David ignored him. "We took you home. Linda always wanted another child. It felt like fate." Linda covered her face. "I didn't know, Chloe, I swear. I thought someone left you. I didn't want to send you into the system. I wanted to keep you safe." Safe? That word nearly broke me. "Then why?" I whispered, shaking. "Did you treat me differently? Why did you say I wasn't your blood? Why did you keep everything from me?" Linda sobbed. David didn't move. Agent Rivera stepped forward. "Mr. Bennett, evidence places you at the same park the Clark child disappeared from. And based on your past employment, we suspect you were involved with a group moving undocumented children." Linda's head snapped up, horrified. "David, please tell me that's not true. Tell me you didn't." He slammed his palms on the table, not violently, but enough to silence her. "I did what I had to do for my family." My eyes stung. Stealing someone else's child is doing what you had to do? He didn't answer. Because there was no answer. Because the truth was there, raw and ugly, hanging in the air between us. Linda's breakdown was instant and heartbreaking. "I loved you, Chloe. I swear I did. I'm sorry, God. I'm so sorry. I didn't know the truth. I didn't know." She reached for me again. This time I didn't move away. I let her touch my hand. Her fingers trembled against my skin, because for the first time, I realized she wasn't the villain in my story. She was another victim, just like me. When the agents escorted them out, Linda sobbing, David stone-faced, I felt no triumph. No justice, only grief. Grief for the little girl who should have grown up safe. Grief for the mother who lost her child. Grief for the woman who unknowingly raised a stolen one. As I stepped outside the FBI building, cold air filling my lungs, I whispered to no one. I wasn't unwanted. I was stolen. But even as that truth settled in, one more storm was waiting for me. And its name was Ethan Clark. If the reunion with my biological parents felt like stepping into warm sunlight, then meeting my brother, Ethan Clark, felt like walking straight into a storm. From the moment I set foot inside the Clark home, he avoided me. At dinner, during conversations. Even walking through the hallway, he'd turn the other direction as if I carried something contagious. At first, I tried to excuse it. He's overwhelmed. He didn't grow up with me. He needs time. But as days passed, his distance sharpened into something unmistakably hostile. One evening, during a family dinner, the tension finally cracked. Michael had prepared roasted chicken. Hannah kept smiling at me like she was trying to make up for 30 lost years. I did my best to fit in, laugh at their stories, ask about their traditions, share pieces of my own life. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Then Ethan scoffed. "So, Chloe," he said, stabbing a piece of chicken with unnecessary force. "What do you plan to do now? Move in? Take your place back in the family? Slip into the life you lost?" The room fell silent. My fork froze midway to my mouth. "I'm not here to take anything," I said softly. He laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Right. Just magically reappear after 30 years, get all the attention, and expect everything to stay the same?" "Ethan," Hannah warned. But he didn't stop. "You don't even remember us. You didn't grow up with us. You're basically a stranger. Why should I suddenly pretend you're my sister?" The words punched through me like cold wind. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm just trying to figure out where I belong." "Not here," he muttered. That one sentence, quiet but razor-sharp, shook me more than anything David Bennett had ever said to me. Later that night, I found him alone in the backyard, tossing rocks into the small pond. I approached cautiously. "Can we talk?" He didn't look at me. "Nothing to talk about." "Ethan, I get that this is hard. It's hard for me too. But I'm not your enemy." Silence. "I thought you might want to get to know me," I said, voice trembling. "But if you don't, that's okay. I hoped." He cut in, bitter. "You hoped we'd all hug and cry and magically become a perfect family? That's not real life, Chloe. Anyway." My chest tightened. He said my name like it was poison. "What did I do to make you hate me?" That finally made him look at me. His eyes weren't angry. They were scared. "Nothing," he admitted slowly. "You did nothing. That's the problem." I frowned. "I don't understand." He clenched his jaw, like he was fighting something inside himself. "For 30 years, I was their only child. Their world, their legacy. I spent my whole life trying to fill a hole I didn't even know existed." His voice cracked. "My whole childhood. They were grieving you. And I didn't know. I thought I wasn't enough. I thought I was the reason they were sad." My heart sank. All this time, I had been terrified of not belonging. But Ethan, he had been terrified of being replaced. "I didn't ask to take anything from you," I whispered. He wiped his eyes quickly, pretending not to. "I know. But knowing doesn't change how it feels." The next day, the media leaked information about the reopened Amber Alert case. Headlines flooded the news. "Stolen child found after 30 years, heiress of Clark family returns." My face, their name, our story, everything went public. And while my parents closed the doors, shut down the press, and asked for privacy, Ethan exploded. He stormed into the living room, waving his phone. "Great. Now the whole world thinks you're the miracle child and I'm the extra one. The convenient replacement." "That's not true," I pleaded. "You're going to get everything now, aren't you? The inheritance, the company, their attention, their love. That's not what I want." "It doesn't matter," he hissed. "It's what's happening." I felt something crack inside my chest. Not from anger, but from grief. "I'm not taking your place, Ethan." He glared at me, broken, shaky. "You already did." That night, I cried harder than I had since the truth came out. Not because Ethan hated me, but because I finally understood what my return had cost him. And yet, something inside me whispered, this story wasn't done with us. Not even close. Because the next revelation, one that would tear our fragile family even further apart, was already on its way. And it would hit Ethan, even harder than me. I thought the worst part of rediscovering my identity was behind me. The FBI, the Bennetts, the reunion, Ethan's hostility. But that was nothing compared to the storm waiting just around the corner. It started with a strange email. No subject line. No sender name, just a random sequence of letters. Normally I'd ignore something like that, but something about it made my stomach tighten. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside was only one sentence. "Your brother isn't angry at you, he's hiding the truth from you." My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Before I could even process it, a second message appeared. "Look closely. His fear has nothing to do with you." Attached was a single PDF file. I hesitated only a second before tapping it open. It was a medical report. Patient name, Ethan Clark. Notes regarding kidney failure concerns. Tests suggesting inconsistent familial linkage. A handwritten note from a physician. Blood relation to parents questionable. Recommend further genetic testing. There is no SETI, and in resin of the SETI paces, and resonant evening int. My vision blurred. I whispered to myself, no, this can't be real. Ethan, not biologically related? If that was true, then everything he feared, everything he accused me of was built on a lie he didn't understand. My hands trembled as I grabbed my coat. I needed answers. Now, I found Ethan in the garage, sitting on the cold floor beside his car, head in his hands. He looked up as I entered. His eyes were red, not angry red, but exhausted red. Before he could speak, I held up my phone. "I got this. I don't know from who, but is it true?" His face went completely still. For a moment, I swear he stopped breathing. He whispered, Where did you get that?" "It doesn't matter," I said, voice shaking. "Ethan, talk to me. Is this real?" He stared at the medical report on my screen like it was a loaded weapon. Then something inside him broke. Yes, he said softly, barely audible. It's real. The garage felt smaller, air thinner as the truth crept between us. How long have you known? 3 months. He looked away. Before you came back. And you didn't tell Mom and Dad? He shook his head violently. Of course not. They've already lost one child. I couldn't be another blow. My throat tightened. Ethan, that's not your burden alone. He laughed bitterly. Maybe. But I carried it anyway. He wiped his face with his sleeve, trying to regain some semblance of control. You want the whole truth? Here it is. I always felt like I didn't belong. I always wondered why I wasn't enough, why our parents looked sad sometimes when they thought I wasn't watching. His voice cracked. And then I found out. I wasn't theirs, not by blood. They adopted me when they thought you were gone forever. His hands shook as he continued. When you came back, Chloe, it didn't just shake me. It confirmed everything I feared. That I was temporary. A replacement. I felt my heart splinter. I never wanted to replace you, I whispered. He nodded, but tears fell anyway. I know. But I didn't know how to not be scared. Silence stretched between us, raw, aching, heavy. Then he said something I didn't expect. You want to know the part that really destroys me? I barely found my voice. What? When I saw you walk through that door, a tiny, traitorous part of me was relieved. Because I thought, maybe now they won't need to pretend to love me so much. My chest ached as I stepped closer. Ethan, look at me. He reluctantly raised his eyes. You were never a placeholder, I told him firmly. Not to them, not to me. Families aren't made by DNA, they're made by choice. By love. The words hung between us, fragile, hopeful. He looked down, voice trembling. I just didn't know how to share them. I barely knew how to be enough on my own. And then, the truth I had never expected. I wasn't angry at you, Chloe. I was angry at myself. For being terrified you'd take my place. I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away this time. Later that night, the 4 of us sat in the Clark living room, Michael, Hannah, Ethan, and me. The room was heavy with fear, but also possibility. Michael took Ethan's hand on one side, mine on the other. I don't care what blood says, he whispered. You are both my children. Nothing changes that. Hannah nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Family is chosen as much as it's birthed, and we choose both of you. Ethan leaned into her, shoulders shaking. I held his hand tighter. In that moment, for the first time since everything began, I felt something settle inside me. Not fear, not confusion, but the fragile, undeniable seed of belonging. Yet, just as peace found us, another knock arrived at the Clark front door, one that would flip everything upside down again, and bring the story to its final, unavoidable reckoning. The knock at the door didn't sound urgent. It was soft, almost hesitant. But for some reason, everyone in the living room froze, as if the world itself had paused mid-breath. Michael wiped his eyes. Hannah straightened her posture. Ethan's grip tightened on my hand. Another knock. I stood up first. When I opened the door, my heart lodged in my throat. It was Linda Bennett. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair looked unbrushed, her coat thrown on in a rush. She wasn't dramatic or frantic, just heartbreakingly human. Chloe, she whispered. Or should I call you Emily now? My breath trembled. Why are you here? Behind me, Michael and Hannah appeared, and for a moment, 3 parents faced one another, past versus present, love versus loss. Linda clutched a small, frayed baby blanket against her chest. The same pastel yellow blanket from the photo the FBI showed me. My knees went weak. You kept that? I whispered. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I kept everything. Every memory, every picture we managed to take after we found you. And yes, I know now that I didn't find you. I know what David did. I know I should have asked more questions. I should have protected you better. She looked up at Hannah and Michael, eyes filled with shame. I didn't take her from you, but I failed her all the same. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Hannah, my birth mother, stepped forward, and instead of anger, she simply said, "Thank you for loving her when we couldn't." Linda covered her face and sobbed. I felt my eyes sting again because that sentence tied every broken piece of my life together. The pain, the loss, the years of confusion, and the strange, complicated love of 2 families colliding. We sat together in the living room, me between the two mothers who had shaped me in ways neither could fully understand. I don't want to intrude, Linda said softly. I just needed to return this. She placed the little yellow blanket in my lap. I wrapped you in that the night David brought you home. You were crying, so small, so cold. I held you for hours. Even when I learned the truth, I couldn't let go of that blanket. Her shoulders shook. I know I wasn't your real mother. But for a while, I tried to be. I reached over and took her trembling hand. You were never the monster, I said. You were the only gentle thing I remember from that house. Her tears deepened. Hannah's eyes softened. The air between the three of us glowed with grief, but also forgiveness. When Linda left, Michael turned to me. There's one more thing, he said. And the way he spoke made my stomach twist. Hannah brought out a small wooden box and placed it on the coffee table. Inside was a stack of letters, hundreds, maybe thousands, all addressed to a name I had never been called. Emily Grace Clark. These are the letters we wrote every year on your birthday, Hannah whispered. We kept writing them even when hope felt impossible. My hands trembled as I picked up the one on top. Happy 7th birthday, Emily. We planted a lilac tree for you today. It's grown tall now. I hope wherever you are, you feel loved. Tears blurred the ink on the page. Ethan leaned close. That tree is still in the backyard, he whispered. If you want, we can see it tomorrow. The thought nearly broke me. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stepped outside alone. The Clark garden was quiet. Soft lights glowed along the path. A breeze rustled the leaves of the tall lilac tree, my lilac tree. I touched its trunk. Rough, solid, alive. A survivor of 30 winters. Just like me. Footsteps sounded behind me. Ethan stood there, hands in his pockets. I know everything's complicated, he said, eyes down. I know I didn't make things easier. You were hurting, I said gently. I understand now. He exhaled shakily. I don't know how to be a good brother, but I want to try. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around him. You already started, I whispered. He held on tightly like someone afraid to be let go ever again. In the weeks that followed, David Bennett faced trial for unlawful custody and trafficking connections. Linda entered counseling and cooperated fully, finally free of the man who controlled her life. The FBI closed my missing child case with the official statement, Emily Clark found alive after 30 years. I legally reclaimed both of my names, Chloe Bennett Clark. And I slowly, tenderly built a relationship with both sides of my past. I didn't lose a family. I gained two. One broken, one healing, both real in their own imperfect ways. On a quiet Saturday morning, Ethan and I stood together beneath the lilac tree. He nudged my shoulder. 30 years late or not, he said, smiling faintly. I'm glad you came home. I smiled back. I'm glad I found home. Not stolen. Not lost. Found. At last.